Hello, everybody, and welcome to Worldsmithing, where we take a concept and world build it. I'm Cody.
And I'm Joe, and we are here, and we're ready to build some. You hear that? You hear that clang clanging in the distance
I do.
as we
It's
build
very light, but I
as
can
we
hear it.
build a world, or rather, I guess now it's aspects of a world,
Ooh, yes.
ideas that one might throw into a Dungeons and Dragons campaign, and things for your characters to explore and ruminate on and interact with and all of this stuff. So
Yeah.
yeah.
What's our theme for this week?
Well, the idea that I wrote up a little bit about is the idea of a cross cultural guild. Um,
Nice.
so this was something that had was kind of intriguing to me. I think that guilds in D&D, um I guess it depends on your table and everything like that, is something that maybe isn't necessarily they can be explored from time to time, but unless you have like a really strong guild presence, like something like being a guild artisan might not necessarily be um the most. And so the way I approached this was this idea of a guild that is designed to be all inclusive. So let me tell you a little bit about the Order of the Silver Owl. About a century ago, before the great split of the Brindian Empire, the capital city of Veridant was a city of great learning, music, art, and science. Because of this, those of all nations flocked to the city to learn, collaborate with their peers, and make their name known in the progress of history. Yet, when the emperor's daughter and only heir, Zadria, died, so overcome with grief, the emperor closed the city off to the rest of the world. In the ensuing chaos, old seats of power began to reassert themselves as the Pax Nomana fell to the wayside. While there is an uneasy detente between the kingdoms that emerged in the ruins of the old empire, for the most part, citizens of these civilizations kept to themselves and didn't often leave their homelands. That is, with one major exception. There were those who lived in the capital city of Veridant that did not want to return to the old ways of isolationism and sticking only to your own kind. They saw that when everyone worked together, the world can become a better place. Plus, there were inventions of the city, machines, and experiments that became too powerful for just one kingdom to know and enjoy. Because of this, a group of artificers and wizards retreated to the caverns beneath Veridant and began a secret organization called the Order of the Silver Owl. While the powers that be know the truth and desperately search for a way to uncover the guild and recover the secrets that they protect, they have pushed this idea of a secret order as a myth, a way to try and prevent the common folk of discovering all that had been lost with the fall of the Viridian Empire. The Order of the Silver Owl works primarily in secret, but they are founded on a simple principle. Anyone who wants to protect knowledge and not exploit it can be a member of the guild. That means that members of this order are vast and many: gnomes, elves, dwarfs, tabaxi, even the occasional Nyasi or Githyanki are among their numbers. While they maintain a level of secrecy, members have a subtle tattoo of a feather located on their left wrist and tend to dress in dark grays. As a secret organization, they aren't exactly setting up tables in the halls of the government or college campuses, but they have their own recruitment techniques. Initiates in their second year of the program go out into the world and observe those who seem controlled by the desire to learn and help their fellow creatures. Those chosen receive a puzzle box, which is challenging to most, but those who can solve it are given a set of coordinates where the roost meets periodically. Because of the joint nature of this guild, the desire to have all members of their world involved, the Leadership Council has one member of every race, all working together to build a society that promotes curiosity, the even equal exchange of ideas, and making the world a better place. Because they are subterranean, it is not difficult for the guild to move beneath the new kingdoms. The council is currently led by Alcarian, a half elf whose father had developed the digging mechanism to continue to build their guild halls, expanding it not only beneath the city where they got their founding, but through all the realms of the kingdom as well, promoting free travel between the kingdoms without necessarily raising suspicions as without having to cross borders, dealing with questions of who they are, where they come from, and what secrets they might protect. The great seal of the center of the fortress or the compound is an owl in one hand holding a hammer and then the other holding the book. There is spiraling text around the owl, a sentence translated into all language but with one common translation. While the world outside is broken, our work is never done. To them, there is a duty to retain the knowledge that when the world is ready for it, they can emerge again in glory. And that is a little bit of my cross cultural guild, the Order of the Silver Owl, a guild promoting knowledge and letting anyone with the curiosity and desire to keep the world safe the ability to join together and protect the world from harm.
Nice.
I will now take questions.
Yeah, so to start off, before I get into the things that I noticed, what was it about a cross-cultural guild that inspired you, and what were your goals in creating this?
Yeah, so I think it was sort of this idea of um when you're playing I feel like it depends obviously on the table and things like that as well that sometimes guilds will as they're presented like will only be like, oh, it's the Masons Guild, and it's like a majority dwarves and like maybe a couple humans thrown into the mix, or like that's especially true if you're playing video games as well, where, you know uh so this idea of, and then the more I thought about it, the more I realized that my assumption wasn't necessarily truly correct, but I just like loved I loved the idea of being in a world that had some level of hard borders with one another, that like, while not necessarily explicit, like it was a lot of cultures that kind of kept to their own and didn't necessarily go too far outside of their own comfort zones or things like that. So this idea that there existed somewhere a place of like true, true equality and racial harmony, where it's like everyone is welcome, every culture is valued, and every culture can help contribute to like sort of this betterment of society. So it's not like you're going to get turned away because you're an orc. It's if you're curious and you solved our puzzle, like please come and join us and help us in our fight to keep the secrets of the past alive, while also preventing it from falling into the hands of those who might do use it for harm. So
Okay, okay. So I noticed here that the guild's goals are interesting. So I guess the question I asked, so part of the goal is that it wants to in a civilization that's collapsing around them since this giant empire is sort of falling apart, they want to protect, they want to like make sure that like everybody's, books and knowledge and culture and history is all being gathered and protected. Um that being said, they want to hide it for themselves, or quote unquote protect it, from those who would do harm with it. How do they, so is there one that oversees the other, or how do they deal with the fact that, like, by design these two ideals kind of clash with one another because they want people to join and collect and gather
Yeah.
and learn,
Uh,
but then also they want to protect it and keep it secret from those who would do harm. So what's the mindset behind that?
maybe this wasn't necessarily signaled super clear in my little description, but part of it as well is that like these were artificers and wizards who like looked around and they saw things like Warforged, and they saw things like vehicles that weren't like cars for our eyes, but like fantasy cars, and other like technological advancements that they were afraid if they like got out could give one culture like an upper hand over another. So when I say like they're protecting things like technologies that might be turned into engines of war. Whereas in the city of Veridont, where they were originally from, like these were not things that were used for combat purposes. They were things for transportation and making people's lives easier. In terms of like collecting the knowledge of others, um, they make that a little bit more well known. It's just more of this idea of they don't want people finding these sort of like modern marvels and wonders of technology because they're worried that they might be used against like the common folk, or to give Kingdom A an upper hand and maybe create like a
Sure.
bad empire, for instance.
Okay, okay. And the I assume that the leader and whoever is, like, quote unquote higher up in this guild, or this guild, they're the ones who decide, like, what information is, like, cool, and, like, yeah, everyone can know this, but, like,
Yeah,
yo, those fucking nuclear bombs over
yeah,
there, probably not
we're
super
gonna
great.
keep
Let's
those
just
under
hold on to
wraps.
that. Got it.
Yeah,
Okay, okay. So they're it's interesting, right? Because, like, on one hand, they have this very idealistic goal, and it seems very, like, um, like, very good, right? Like, when you think of, like, an alignment chart, like, oh man, they're preserving history. They're making sure that, like, the world doesn't fall into chaos during all this madness. And then on the other hand, they're like, but we also don't trust people to use this knowledge correctly. So it's also a little selfish. So it's very interesting. I know, like, they would outwardly say, like, no, we're good and all that, but there definitely is, like, there is room for that to be a very interesting scenario. So I guess my next question is, if not necessarily a rank and file member, right? Like, not like someone who's just getting in on off the street. Let's say you're very well respected in this guild. What kind of missions would you take on for your leader, or for this this guild?
yeah. I think that it if you're a high ranking member of this guild, I think that a lot of it could be potentially putting out little fires. So it's like, hey, we heard rumors that a machine of the old world has like been uncovered in the elven kingdom, and they have a team of scientists who are like starting to experiment with it and maybe like learn about it. And so your goal might be to go in and take that or dismantle it in such a way that it's no longer workable. I think that there's a level two of you searching for like supplies and things like that to continue the work and continue the experimentation, because while in the city of Veridont, it was pretty easy to get control of the supplies that you might need to build these wonders and these things. since the fall, it's become much more difficult for individuals to get their hands on the things that they need, especially things like supplies of the arcane, magical nature. So they still exist out there, but I'm kind of envisioning the higher ups as sort of a like weird hybrid between like Indiana Jones and also like Indiana Jones meets a little bit of Q, where it's like in your off time you're doing some of your own experimentation, but like don't be surprised if you have to run off and um you know uh take down a car or whatever.
Sure. Okay. Now, if you were running a long-term campaign, who, how would you introduce this guild? Would they be someone like someone you'd start working for? Would this be like an antagonistic group that you kind of meet up against? Is it kind of a neutral group that you may interact with? Like, if you were running a game, how would you want to use this guild? And tell me a little bit about why you'd like to use them in that way.
So my idea was initially, you kind of had alluded to it, where on the surface they seem like pretty good, but I imagine that over years of people kind of taking over in terms of in ways that will move away from the original mission, that maybe you might have someone who is a little bit more of an egotist taking charge or things like that. But in any case, I would imagine, I would initially have it being that your party is like a band of adventurers, like caravanning or something like that. Like I said, it's not impossible to go between the kingdoms, it's just rather difficult. um and them initially working as kind of like a shadow organization that's like not fighting you, and they're not like attacking you or anything. Like their methods are largely, they don't necessarily want to confront individuals like with combat if they can avoid it. um but at some point them revealing themselves, and either it being along the lines of like, you're never going to be a member of this guild, right? Like they're going to be pretty upfront about it, but like periodically they will open up to people who aren't members of the guild but who can help them out in little things, like finding little trinkets for them, or finding helping them on like a mission where like maybe you have to get your hands dirty a little bit. Like they themselves aren't going to get their hands dirty, but they're certainly not above hiring someone else to get their hands dirty for you. So I don't necessarily imagine them being a faction that you would join. Like if the party's really, really like excited about it, but this idea of, I don't think that the guild is much interested outside of people who aren't like artificers or wizards. So it's like we would never let like, a like a ranger into our ranks. Like that's ridiculous. Like what could you possibly contribute to? But if you want to help us um like infiltrate this fortress, then by all means, like we'll hire you on for a little bit. Um, and so yeah, that was kind of how I envisioned them, as like someone who might give you the occasional mission or things like that. And then, there is always the possibility that they could become an end game villain, depending on, how the party is viewing them and what they're working on. Because who knows, maybe there are members of it who want this knowledge, want those technologies out there, because the world would be much more interesting if there were robots running around and things like that. So
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Um. It's interesting. How. So you kind of briefly touched on it that they don't they're not just underneath their home city, that they've kind of expanded outward. In terms of like if they had some kind, like if they have power backing them up, how strong is this? Is this organization like the strength of maybe like a town militia, or is this like you would definitely not want to take these guys in a head-on fight? Like what's the scale of this, I guess? Because I know you hinted at like there's several locations, but like is this all over the world? Is this just in this kind of region? Like how scary would it be to piss these guys off is kind of what I'm alluding to.
I would say that it was probably just in this region. So
Okay,
I imagine that this empire, so the way I have it written is like this empire collapsed into kind of like five kingdoms.
sure.
And so
But there's still five like, and when you say kingdoms, like they're fairly large
yeah,
areas of land with people and stuff like that, right?
yeah,
Like
I hadn't necessarily thought of um the size of it. I imagine it would be somewhere between, like you said, like a town militia, but I don't think by any means it's like this super aggro, like, or this super force that like if you drop a hat they would be able to, like, kind of reclaim the surface world or whatever. um
right,
I
right. Okay.
imagine that there are maybe like the main city and then a couple of larger tributaries,
Sure.
beneath, like one beneath like every capital city, um so that, like, it's not necessarily easy to travel from one kingdom to the next, but it is possible to do so without having to like cross borders. So
Cool. All
I
right.
don't know if that's
Okay.
a thorough enough answer, but
No, I think that that gives me like it gives me a better visualization of like what we're talking about. Like you definitely don't want to go to this main hub zone and start pissing people off, but like you're not gonna go into every city and be like, "Yo, those owls though," and people are like, "You shut the fuck up about them." Like it's not like a you know, it's like a I know it's a secret organization by design, but like you're not going to walk into every city and people are going to know what you're talking about if you were to just casually bring up their name.
yeah, for sure.
Okay, got it. Um, and then last, yeah, probably this is the last one that I can think of. So this would be a neutral organization that may occasionally give you a quest or two, but obviously they're doing stuff in the background and may end up either being the villain or like some kind of ally in some kind of over scaling thing. Is the I guess is the power dynamic in this organization so secret and structured that like it never go like it's gonna like that half elf that you mentioned is gonna be the head of that organization until he dies of old age, or like is there a very real possibility that like because it is a it because it does sound like a secret spy organization who's collecting information to make sure that like not only do we retain this knowledge but also make sure that we don't like accidentally blow ourselves up from like the war of the automobiles.
Hmm.
um is it structured enough where like one like the campaign could spiral into, well, remember that villain that you fought a while ago who was super creative and you helped him like get something? Well, now now he owns the owls and now you're absolutely fucked because he is doing that. Like how rigid is this organization to power shifts, you know? Cuz like I think you mentioned it pretty early on that the reason that this empire collapsed into five different smaller kingdoms was because of a power struggle situation that occurred.
Yeah, I kind of envisioned it as being a, or rather it's the council is elected from the group, and it's one of those deals too where it's one of those, like, age does kind of bequeath like a little bit of extra added authority where it's like, well, he's been experimenting for so long, or she's been, artificing for so long. But um, I think that the um, current leader Alcaran um, is something of a big shift in the philosophy because they are significantly younger than any council leader has been before. And
Okay.
so there is some concern that with their youth, that it's maybe this character is perhaps attempting to make some power plays. I don't necessarily think that anyone initially thinks that like they're going to have a problem with this, but it is possible, like, there is sort of this like kind of undercurrent of maybe the ways that we've been running thus far, while they've been effective, aren't quite enough. And so I think that, it's one of these deals where you see kind of this growing trend of um, no one's quite sure how to place it. It seems like it is good natured, where it's just like, hey, like we have this gift that we can give to others. But there may be some older members of the faction who are growing concerned about um, this leader's influence in the organization. Not that there's anything
Ah,
like I don't think that like I said, I haven't necessarily thought about the implications of good or evil in terms of this organization,
sure.
but at the very least, maybe there is some changes coming to the Order of the Silver Owl that could have some bigger impact on the world and specifically for your party. So
Well, I like it. I like your little spy organization. I was definitely getting some, at least at the end there, I was getting some Black Panther vibes that felt really nice.
yeah, that's kind of what I was like thinking as I was doing it. Once again, like Black Panther, I don't think a lot of people think about this, but it is kind of like five different nations that all like, or they're five different ethnic groups, right? You have the or like the river tribe and the border tribe and the Jabari, and um they all respect the Black Panther, but there is also the ability that at any point any one of those cultures could kind of take over the mantle of leadership in Wakanda. Um and so that was a little bit of the thought as I was going through it. And so yeah, but in any case, it's this one was kind of an interesting one just because it's like I feel like I like guilds and I'd like to think through of like what this like work organization might be like in this fantasy world. So
Yeah, well, it's got color me peaked with interest because I always love a good secret organization and one that isn't uh you played a very you played a very tight rope with because like I feel like a lot of like quote unquote secret organizations are just, oh, we're good, we do this thing in secret because of reasons, or we're evil and we do things in secret because duh, it's evil.
yeah,
It's very interesting to see this, like, well, you can see the good that they are doing, but like, are they really the people who should be in charge of necessarily keeping those secrets and doing all this stuff? Like, it's kind of like they've just decided, like, it's kind of like the Batman debacle, right?
sure,
Like,
yeah, I understand.
who gave Batman the right to be judge, jury, and kneecap executioner
Yeah,
on so many people? Granted, it's usually pretty like self-explanatory that like the people that Batman tackles are criminals, evil to a certain degree, etc. But this seems a little more nuanced, where it's like some of the things they do could actually be bad or good depending on how you look at it. It's very shades of gray, and those are the ones that are interesting because when they do shift, that can be very powerful in a game.
Yeah, for sure.
But I like it.
But yeah, in any case, hey Cody,
Yeah,
if people listen to this episode and they want to hear more or learn more, where's the place that they can learn more?
they can go to our website at www.fandomroulette.com, where all of our episodes go up as they're getting uploaded to the internet. And along with a bunch of other stuff, if you have a topic of conversation that you would like us to wordsmith, at the very bottom of our website, there's a little form. All you need is a little internet handle, so that we can thank you in the future if we receive one, and what you'd like us to talk about, and we will consider it in potentially world building. You could be on the next episode of Worldsmithing.
Whoa. And
I know,
hey,
right?
if someone wants to listen, if you want to tell your friend about the show, but they don't use the same podcasting apps as you, where's a place that they can go to find our episodes of our show?
No, we're all over the place. We're on Spotify, YouTube, Google Play, iTunes, Stitcher, all of your RSS podcasting apps. All you got to do is search Fandom Roulette.
And hey, if someone wants to send us a meme or like get in touch with us or just say, hey, are there any social media outlets where people can talk to us and learn a little bit more about us?
You betcha. We are on Twitter at FandomR_podcast. That is our Twitter handle. And if you're feeling more Facebook and Instagram savvy, we're also on those platforms. All you got to do is search Fandom Roulette.
Also, please remember to like, rate, review, and subscribe. Click the subscribe button, ring the bell, give us 5 stars, all that wonderful stuff. Tell
Yeah,
a friend about the episodes. Any little thing that can help us move up those ranks, be it a positive review or just more listens, helps us to grow and make more fun stuff like this. We know that there's lots of podcasts out there that you can spend your time with, and we really want to thank you for spending some of it with us because this is always a lot of fun, and we like, you know, getting this out in the world. Um,
yeah.
but in any case, thank you so much for listening to this episode of Fandom Roulette. Um, I'm Joe,
And I'm Cody.
and as always, stay nerdy.
Stay super nerdy.